The NFL draft is really creeping up on us quickly. And I have to admit that at this point, really, I am first round agnostic. So I wanted to look at some of the first round national mock drafts. I got a couple of graphics here. So today there was an article on Arrowhead Pride about a Mel Kiper mock draft, and I stole a couple of the graphics from that because I think that they are informative in as far as what exactly we're looking at for the Kansas City Chiefs, because they tell us absolutely nothing at all. And I thought that that was pretty interesting. Looking at this right here, they have put together the national mock draft position percentages. And because there are individuals listed at 2% once we get to the individual players, I'm assuming that what this is that they have built this compilation off of 50 mock drafts, because that way one account would equal 2%, right? So I'm assuming that this is 50 different mock drafts. And you can see half of them have the Chiefs going offensive line, a quarter of them have the Chiefs going defensive tackle, 10% have edge rusher, so 35% are defensive line, 50% are offensive line, another 6% are defensive back, another 6% are wide receiver, and 4% are tight end. You will notice from the list of individual players, obviously from the last list, we understand that there are no quarterbacks, wide receivers, or linebackers. But looking at the list of individual players here, there are no safeties either. And I think that might be a mistake. I think that there is a possibility that the Kansas City Chiefs go safety in the first round of this draft, depending on who is available. And you know, Brett Veach loves to draft some defensive backs. But the the percentages go as such. 15% of the time, first round drafts have the Chiefs taking Josh Conerly out of Oregon. That's an offensive tackle. Another 12%, Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. If he is there, it is most likely because of the hangover on his final season in college with that injury. Another Ohio State offensive lineman. I don't know whether he will play guard or tackle in the NFL. He is listed as a tackle by PFF, which we'll get to in a moment. I don't think he's a first rounder. And Ariante Ursary with 6%. But then you have Derek Harmon from Oregon at 6%, a defensive tackle. Defensive tackle Tyleik Williams at 6%. Defensive tackle Walter Nolan at 6%. Defensive tackle Kenneth Grant at 4%. Defensive tackle Darius Alexander at 4% as well. I don't think Kenneth Grant will be available. Darius Alexander does not fit the Kansas City Chiefs age profile. So what are we looking at if not the Kansas City Chiefs are taking a tackle? Offensive or defensive, we don't know. Obviously, I mean, the speculation that we don't know, there's no real, I don't think Brett Veach is going to tip his hand in this draft. I think that in addition to all of these different players, all of these different positions, Brett Veach is a wild card to trade up or down in this draft as well. And looking at the players looking at different mock draft scenarios, guys, I think there's going to be situations where multiple players at multiple positions that the Kansas City Chiefs covet could fall to them. I think that this is a draft where, based on Andy Reid's offense and based on Steve Spagnuolo's defense, there will be multiple players that are in that first round range that will be there. So you're looking at, obviously, Josh Conerly and Josh Simmons are both players that are within the framework of what the Kansas City Chiefs would want from an offensive tackle. Ariante is an offensive tackle that I think Andy Reid would like to have. Tyleik Williams, defensive lineman that Spagnuolo would love. Walter Nolan, Spagnuolo would love him. Scorton, Spagnuolo would love him. Emeka Egbuka, Andy Reid would love him. Cameron Williams, I don't think they would love it off offensive tackle. You get through all of these names, and, well, even at the wide receiver position, Matthew Golden, that's an Andy Reid type guy. I think that there are several players at several positions that could fall to the Chiefs that would tempt them to trade back and try to pick up value. Will the value outweigh the fifth-year option on a first-round contract? That is something to be asked. And depending on the position, I'm not sure it does. We have seen the Kansas City Chiefs shy away from long-term deals for wide receivers, shy away from signing big-name wide receivers, shy away from re-signing multiple cornerbacks at this point. So if it's a cornerback, if it's a wide receiver, I think that we might be more likely to see the Kansas City Chiefs go ahead and make the pick versus trading back and hoping the player is still there. Will the Kansas City Chiefs be a threat to move up in this draft? Yes. That is every bit as interesting to me as moving down. I think that the Chiefs do have, and so the real threat for moving down, in my opinion, is Brett Veach looking at this roster, knowing that he has some holes, right? Defensive tackle is a hole, edge 2 is a hole, wide receiver depth is a hole. How do you actually feel about your 2 starting offensive tackles? What are you doing at the left guard spot? I think that there are definitive holes on this roster. But next season is when, after next season, that great big draft class of Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, those are the 2 first-rounders, so they'll be the year after. But all of the players that were taken in that draft after the first round become free agents. So at that point, what we've seen Brett Veach be very good at in the past is drafting ahead of time, drafting ahead of a need. And look, it hasn't always worked out, right? The wide receiver spot and the offensive line have been constant woes for this franchise since Brett Veach became the general manager. Guys, if the players aren't there to be taken, you just can't take them. And everybody misses on positions. Everybody has weak spots in their scouting department. Everybody whiffs a couple times per draft. And it just so happens that it is compounded for the Kansas City Chiefs in those 2 positions. So I wanted to look at, trading back might be because Brett Veach is forecasting needs for next season and having to have extra value in the draft. Trading up would be Brett Veach identifying specific players for this roster this season that he thinks can help him win the Super Bowl. Where are those players? You're not probably going to see him trade up, get aggressive and trade up for a wide receiver because you've probably got your top 3 wide receivers on the roster. If one falls to them that is extremely talented, I think they snatch him up in a moment. Emeka Egbuka, right? Luther Burden, any of these guys that you see falling to the Chiefs periodically in mock drafts. That's not to say I think he would get aggressive and move up and take them. If a guy is going to come onto the roster and be a 4th wide receiver, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to get that aggressive in the first round. If a guy is going to come in and supplant one of your offensive tackles, maybe it does. I don't know that you can forecast that for really any of the guys in this draft. It's, I think, an interesting class at offensive line. I think it's a deep class at offensive line. I don't think it's a particularly top-heavy class at offensive line, meaning you might be able to stay where you're at and pick up a guy that's kind of the same as the guy you would have traded up to draft. If there's one position that I think might really be, well, there's two positions that I think might really be targeted by the Chiefs to move up and get. If they think there is a special cornerback in this class, I don't know who that would be. I didn't think Trent McDuffie was going to be as special as he has been. I thought, yeah, it's a day one starter. I didn't know he was going to be what he has been. I don't know who that would be in this class. If they find someone that they think is a shut-down corner, I think absolutely 110% it's on the table. They could trade up and get him. Or an edge player. I don't think there's the defensive tackles in this class that are going to make you jump up and down in your seat to go up and get. I do think there are a couple of edge players if the Chiefs really think that's the guy I'm putting opposite George Karlaftis. That's the guy that's going to free up Chris Jones. If there's one of those guys in this draft, that will be who it is that they trade up and get. So I think if they trade up, it is a corner or an edge. But I wanted to take a moment to look at the guys most commonly mocked to the Kansas City Chiefs. Starting with Josh Conerly, he was 15% of the time mocked to the Kansas City Chiefs. 6'4", 315 pounds, 21 years old, out of Oregon. Conerly has good movement skills for a player who also brings adequate size and plus length to the tackle position. His game can lack some anticipation and strength, but if he continues to improve in those areas, he holds the skill set to be a reliable NFL starter, one who can be impactful for a zone blocking scheme. 34th overall rated player. You see him grading out last season at 78.3. That's a good grade for an offensive tackle. I can see this. If you're going to stay pat, if you're going to stand pat where you're at, 31, Josh Conerly falls to you, it would not shock me, and this is a comment that goes for all of these coming prospects, it would not shock me to see Brett Veach get aggressive on the line, get sick of it, get tired of it, and overcompensate with talent at that position. I think they do have some quality depth pieces here. I think they have a couple of guys that are not going to start that could start. So Hunter Nourzad, is he in year 2 ready to be a starter? Well, he might not ever get the chance. Wanye Morris, I think he can play at right tackle. I think he can start at right tackle. I think he could be a plus offensive guard. So there's guys on this roster that I think you're going to have the opportunity. I think you're going to have the opportunity in the next year or so to have excess depth at the offensive line, and you could see a trade or two for assets. But then do you really want to tempt the fates in that way? The number 2 player at 12% was Josh Simmons, 6'5", 310 pounds. Simmons brings impressive flexibility, leverage, foot speed, balance, and handwork to the NFL with an adequate frame. He lacks a bit of power in the run game and is coming off of an ACL tear in 2024. But his movement skills and football intelligence make him worthy of a top 50 pick and a shot to be a starter early on. The 18th overall player ranked. Why would he be falling to 31? Because he is returning from injury. Played, if you look at that there, 306 snaps last season compared to 825 in 2023 and 799 in 2022, compared to 965 for Josh Conerly and 901 for Josh Conerly in 2023. He is a year older than Conerly at 22.2, the same with his Ohio State teammate Donovan Jackson. Donovan Jackson, 6'4", 320. Jackson isn't the flashiest player, but his footwork, technique, and leadership give him day one starter potential. I think that is true. I think probably he starts his NFL journey at offensive guard, but will get the opportunity to play tackle in his career. And I think he'll start. I think he'll be a good right tackle, but I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs can be in the business of collecting right tackles anymore. And then Ariante Ursary. 6'6", 330 pounds. Ursary brings alluring size and length to the tackle position for the NFL. He has good hands and explosive first step, forward and quick footwork to be impactful as a zone run blocker, but has naturally high-waisted build, impacts his leverage, and may inhibit him from keeping NFL rushers in front of him. 691 snaps last season with a 77.5 grade, but in his 2023 campaign, 841 snaps with an 84 grade. He is listed at the Donovan Jackson, I meant to say this earlier, 68th overall rated player by PFF. I think that's even a little rich. I would put Donovan Jackson as a third-round prospect. I would be elated for the Chiefs to get him in the third round. Ariante Ursary listed at 61. I think this is a guy who sneaks into the first round. I think Ariante Ursary, on his tools, on the things that he has shown on film, I think that's a first-round pick, even if maybe there are some concerns about the ceiling. Guys, I don't even think there should be concerns about the ceiling. The floor is high. The ceiling is high for Ursary. I think that you have to... There's things he has to work on, but I think, look, it's the NFL draft. You are trusting your coaches. I think that he is mobile for a guy that is 6'6", 330 pounds. And if you can harness that, you have a guy who can start at either of your tackle positions for years. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to take a look at some of the prospective first-round picks for the Kansas City Chiefs, talk a little bit about the draft strategy that I can imagine being employed in this draft, and then get out. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. We are over 2 years consecutive of daily Chiefs content uploads. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.